This is a little bit different than what I normally would share. Normally, we like to share like weird things, like even what you did was a little bit different, but scary things that happen to people, like maybe a ghost or a paranormal thing or an intruder in their house. So I have a little bit different approach to this. I found this story. It's a 100% true story, documented story. This guy's like a legend around the scene for this. His name is Gene Moe. All right. Like I said, this is a true story based on a guy named Gene Moe. It's Bear Attack. Kodiak Island sits on the severe but beautiful south coast of Alaska, USA. Crisscrossed with some sparkling rivers and ice-cold bays, the island is famous for its salmon, which in the summer months bring fishermen from all around the world. But this place is also famous for another reason. The northern half of the island is carpeted with dense mountainous forest and populated with forest bears, but not just any bear, the Kodiak bear. The Kodiak bear is the biggest carnivore in the world, on average slightly larger than a polar bear. Kodiak bears belong to the brown bear family, which is common throughout Alaska and North America. But it's their distinctive diet that makes them so massive. All but a whole bunch of salmon. These mighty animals are lucky enough to have their own high-protein superfood right at their doorstep. This allows them to get extra huge, and they are basically bodybuilders of the animal world. In peak season, the adult males can weigh as much as 1,400 pounds, and they stand nearly 10 feet high when on two legs. That's roughly as heavy as a grand piano and half as tall as a giraffe. Not something you'd want to get into a tussle with, but that's exactly what happened to veteran hunter Gene Moe on November 1st, 1999. Gene had been hunting along the ridge of the Kodiak woods just as he'd done for many years. He'd seen plenty of bears before and even had some frightening encounters, but nothing had prepared him for the epic battle he was about to have with the biggest man-eater on the planet. As he made his way through the forest, he noticed several deep gouges along the barks of trees. These gouges are so big one might think they'd been made by a chainsaw, not an animal. However, Gene knew this was a bear's way of marking his territory and made sure to get as far away from this as quickly as possible. But it wasn't that simple. Gene had just spent all day stalking deer at the trail hook, and it took him around in a wide circle that when he eventually caught up with his prey, he was put right back in the beast's territory. Unfortunately, by that point, he was too caught up in the hunt to notice. This was his first big mistake. The sky was growing dark, but he was able to hunt down the deer. It was a long, hard day of hunting. He leaned his rifle against the log and started skinning the deer next to the stream. This was his second big mistake because the scent of the blood and gore went into the summer evening breeze. It wasn't long before that scent reached the sharp nostrils of a nearby Kodiak bear. That's the thing about bears, some of the best hunters in the food chain, but they will be just as happy to steal someone else's lunch. Gene was about to go from hunter to hunted. One minute he was bent over trimming the deer, the next he heard a sound that would stay with him the rest of his life. A roar so loud it shook the trees nearby. The bear came out of the forest with a force of a steam train, knocking Gene hard to the ground. It began clawing at his throat and eyes with vicious, sharp claws. He was engulfed in the bear's massive bulk. Its fur filled his mouth and eyes. He was completely disoriented. He couldn't see. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't even scream. Luckily, he still had his knife with him, and he jabbed again and again into the creature's thick hide. But to no avail. The bear got a hold of his arm and jaws and crunched down. The pain was all-encompassing, but somehow he had the presence of mind to keep jabbing and kicking the animal. Gene was wearing big, heavy mountain boots, and they probably saved his life because he was able to kick the half-ton creature off him. He got up fast and looked. Now the sensation of being able to see and breathe overwhelmed him more than the pain was. But just for a moment, he wondered if he had died. But this thought did not last long. His heart sank when he looked over and he saw his gun was still leaning against the log where he'd left it, because it was too far away. He'd never reach it before the bear was on top of him again. If the bear got him on the ground again, he knew he wouldn't be getting back up ever again. So he turned away from his weapon and instead started jabbing his other weapon into the creature's neck. But the muscles of the bear's neck were too thick. They were like tree roots, and he only managed to get gashes. The blood was spilling onto the moss. The massive bear lunged at Gene with all his might. Again, Gene was lucky. Like a prize bullfighter, he stepped aside at the very last second, the very last moment, and the bear missed him by centimeters. Taking advantage of this moment, he jabbed the sharp blade out as deep as the bear's back, where he knew where the vertebrae was. The blade went in, and the bear let out a crazy roar. Obviously badly wounded, the bear moved away, circling around him. Gene didn't dare to move. He wiped the blood from his eyes as he realized he only had one good arm. His other arm had been crushed useless. He could start to feel the pain kick in. He was in severe agony, and he had lashes all across his body. He knew if that bear came back for another attack, he would most certainly die. He looked into the bear's eyes. Just that moment, the bear came in. It was moving slowly this time. The bear jumped forward. Gene acted without thinking, dropping his knife. Instead, he took his good arm back up into a wide arc, and he brought it down with all the strength he had left in his body. His fist hit the bear in the nose so hard it broke several bones in his hand. But the bear went down. It bounced once, then its enormous head came to rest on a patch of moss. He wondered if it was even still alive. He hobbled over to grab his rifle. He meant to end the beast. His hands were just too weak, covered in blood, and numb. They hurt so bad he couldn't even use it. Fortunately, the animal was already dead, but Gene's incredible story does not end there. He knew he was losing a lot of blood and needed to get off the island and get to a hospital as quickly as possible. He had to find the strength to get down the beach where his friend had a boat. The trip was anything but easy. Coming down off that mountain was the hardest thing he'd ever done. 3 or 4 times, Gene collapsed to the ground into the moss, but every time he found the strength to get back up and continue. Eventually, he reached the shore. His friend helped him get to a nearby cabin where they were able to call for help. It took Gene a month, rehab, 2 skin grafts, and over 550 stitches, but he made a full recovery. But in the end, he came out better than the bear, which was later recovered. Till this day, Gene Moe has that bear hanging on his wall.
Holy crap.
I told you, dude. Legend, isn't he?
Oh, wow.
Yep. Everybody doesn't believe he ended it. Yes, he did. This is a true story. Yep. Massive, huge bear, and he did survive. Yes, he was able to defeat the bear.
That is crazy.
Yeah, I had to go back and look. I think he was an older fellow when he accomplished this too. He wasn't a spring chicken exactly. Massive bear.
Yeah, I mean, Kodiak bears are ridiculous. Like, I remember seeing one when I was a kid at like a children's museum exhibit. Like, they had like a stuffed one. It's nuts.
I think this is an amazing story, and it's not like a typical story we'd share, but I probably didn't do as good a job as reading it as it lived up in my head. But I thought, man, like, this is absolutely insane. Can you imagine how terrifying this would be?
Oh, bears are monsters. Like,
we talk about like crazy ghosts and goblins and whatever else we talk about, but the fact of the matter is, like, out there in the woods, that's like the most deadly thing to worry about.
There's a reason why all of our old stories of things in the woods that will kill you exist. And it's because of freaking Kodiak bears.
See, I wasn't as familiar until I started my research here that Kodiak bears are actually bigger than polar bears.
Yeah.
It's that salmon, dude. They just live off that salmon, so
they're monsters. Like, they're huge. And so, like, yeah, to fight one in close combat, and he punched it to death? Is that what he did there?
I think, I don't know if he punched it to death, but I think it was like the final blow.
Like, you hit its head on that rock afterwards. Or
something. But he also had all the multiple jabs he got in there.
Still, like, the final thing is him punching it.
Yeah, online you can actually, I should have saved this picture. It's the bear.
Was it like 12 feet tall?
It's a huge bear, but it's on his wall.
Good Lord. That's crazy.
Yeah. And what would you say to Gene Moe right now if you could?
I would get his autograph.
Yeah, when I heard this story, I was like, I got to share this on the show.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Not exactly scary, but put yourself in his shoes, though.
I mean, it's terrifying, really, if you think about it. It's a real thing that you can run into for sure. There's no debate.
Oh, yeah. And like I said earlier, he couldn't do it again if he tried, right? Like, what would be the likelihood he could succeed at defending off this bear again in this scenario? Like, obviously, he would be more prepared next time, but let's just say he goes back to the same scenario again.
Yeah.
what's the likelihood he would survive, you think?
This is next to nothing. That's what it is for everyone. Literally everyone on the planet in that same situation is next to nothing to survive.
Like, everything had to line up perfect for this.
Yeah.
Gene Moe. I call him Gene Legend.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good name for him. Gene Legend. Wow.
I just thought it was crazy, the detail, like his hand was completely smashed.
Yeah. He was,
Like, just, and the article had a bunch more details, but his arm was smashed, his hand.
and he's bleeding to death at this point. Slowly.
Yeah, oh yeah.
God, that is crazy.
There are various stories about this. Some were even longer form, so I tried to get something like in the middle.
Right.
Sum it up in a way that was good. Yeah. Hopefully everybody enjoyed that one. That was a fun one for me.
I would like to watch a movie about that guy.
Gene Moe. Note that down, everybody listening. Gene Moe. Wow. Yeah, thanks for listening live out there. We've got people commenting all across social media. Let us know what you thought of that. Salmon, good protein. Yes, they are. Somebody said he wouldn't have had a scratch if he fought the bear. No, I don't know.
Don't believe that.
Jeff Townsend Media. CG, good night.
And the question is, do I stay here? Will you be back? Are you gonna come back? Will you be back? Are you coming back?